A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine on what is a cold and wet day up here in Johannesburg. The rain has been pouring down. It's felt positively Welsh as the day has unfolded, but probably my penance for having enjoyed 5 days of glorious sunshine down at Fan Court at the Dimension Data Pro-Am, where if you were watching the show on Thursday, you would have seen me. We were down not just playing golf, but also filming Thursday's show, where we both caught up with Fiona McDonald, who paid tribute to a wonderful man, a dear friend of hers, a dear friend of South African wine in the form of Dave Hughes. And we also had an audience with Nina Marie Breuer, who is running marketing and sales at the moment at Boschendal, but has her own rich history as a winemaker. She is a Cape wine master and has fabulous knowledge and experience of South African wine, and thereafter drinking a fair amount of Boschendal over the ensuing few days, in particular the Jean Long, the 10 years on lease bubbles that has been brought out by Boschendal. That was sampled for the first time by a number of people who normally drink champagne and were very pleasantly surprised by the quality and the similarity to some of the stuff they've normally drunk from France. So a good few days all round, but now back to the cold. Ahead of going back to the Cape, because this Saturday is the Cape Wine Auction. It is a decade of the Cape Wine Auction held this year in partnership with MasterCard, and it is an event that has raised well over 100 million rand over the years for a selection of causes within the winelands that focus on early learning and on education and on development, and have done so much to help some really good platforms continue to do excellent work within the winelands community. So as I'm going to be down hosting the event and doing the auction with Iain Banner, we decided we'd drag some of the auction crew in. We've definitely got Paul Cluver with us. I was chatting to him just a moment ago. We don't sadly have the chair, Raymond Ndlovu, who has a personal matter to attend to, but we will be catching up with him at the auction on Saturday. And then I'm hoping my co-auctioneer Iain Banner, the completely impossible Wendy Appelbaum, and a fellow trustee, Ken Kinsey-Quick, when he's not at traffic lights in Stellenbosch selling chili oil, will be joining us as well. But we'll see how the show unfolds. Paul definitely with us in just a moment. Before we catch up with him, though, here's some of the latest wine news. Oh, this is the Italian festival at Idiom that is coming up. Idiom has got a very strong Italian background, as can be seen from the wine that they have. You'll find wines full of things like Sangiovese if you head out to Idiom and take in the wonderful view and the beautiful, beautiful artwork they have adorning their lawns. If you're interested in going along, it is the 4th and the 5th of March. Head over to Idiom's website. They've got some more information on that. It's more than just wine, though. It is all things Italian. So expect footballers falling over in corners and other such Italian staples. It's going to be a lot of fun, a beautiful spot. If you haven't been out to Idiom, just above Solari's Pass, that is the 4th and 5th of March. So a good way to kick off next month. That's 2023. Then here is a young man by the name of Joe who has reason to be smiling. Over the weekend, in fact, I think it was yesterday, the World Sommelier Championships. And the man in question finished 7th in the entire world. So congratulations, Joe. That's a brilliant, brilliant effort. We've had South African sommeliers do particularly well in various spaces over the years. And lovely to see another South African shining, following the footsteps of people like Gareth Ferreira and Vickers and a number of other top sommeliers. Mr. Ridon Jean Vincent was following this very closely online. So to Miguel Chan, two of our top local sommeliers, watching one of the next generation of superstars make his mark abroad. 7th this year. I think there's a lot more to hear from a young sommelier with a very bright future. And it also is a great inspiration for our other young sommeliers, showing just how a member of their local sommelier community can make a mark internationally. So great news from the weekend for the world of sommeliers. And then this is just a throw forward to what we're talking about this evening. I'm not sure if there are any tickets left over. We'll find out from the team in just a second. But Hazendal Estate, it is 6 o'clock this coming Saturday, the 18th of February. It is the annual Cape Wine Auction Dinner and Dance in partnership with MasterCard. Can you still get tickets? Well, let's find out from our guests and see who has joined us. We've definitely got one, and he's the best looking of the lot, so that's a good start. A very, very good evening, Paul Clüver, and welcome ahead of an extremely exciting weekend. I know we're hoping to rope in a few of your fellow trustees when they wake up from their weekend excess, but it's great to have you on, filling in for the role of chair because Raymond sadly had to tender his apologies, and so I'll ask you the question that I would have asked him. What does it mean to you guys as a trust to be able to this year look back at an entire decade of the Cape Wine Auction and see the sheer amount of work, the difference that you've made through this quite remarkable platform?
Humbling, I would say, Dan. Hi, firstly, it's great to be on the show. You know, the need is so incredible when it comes to education in the winelands, and the Cape Wine Auction Trust was founded, as you said, a decade ago. It was pioneered by Mike Ratcliffe, who's now at Volifonte, with the idea of saying, how do we make a difference, or how do we try and make a difference within this the wine industry? And it's been absolutely incredible. 122 million rand has been raised in this time. All of the proceeds has gone for charity causes, so there's no administration fees or 30% that gets disappeared. The various trustees that serve with me, ranging from Wendy Appelbaum, Raymond Slovo, Iain Banner, Dominique Eindhoven, they all do this because they want to make a difference. They give up freely of their time, and it's absolutely superb to see what's being done.
Give us a sense of how this actually did take off, because it's become such an institution. It's almost difficult to imagine a time when there wasn't the Cape Wine Auction, but it's only been 10 years and it reached very great heights very quickly indeed. What was the magic ingredient that allowed this event to not just come together, but to take off as quickly and successfully as it has?
That's a good question. I think a great vision. That would be the first thing. A great vision with a great purpose, and the purpose is clear. Is how do we raise funds for the winelands without skimming off any of the money. 100%, as I said, of the proceeds ends up for the causes that we support. And we do this, so we only have one event, fundraising event, and that's the Cape Wine Auction Trust, or the Cape Wine Auction that takes place. Sadly, during COVID, we missed 1 year, but last year we were back, and this year we're doing it again. And it's an opportunity for people to have fun, enjoy themselves, but at the same time to give and to make a difference.
Which they have been doing, and they've been doing so in a way that has been particularly eye-catching, because you think of maybe a school event where you go along and there's the raffle and there's the tombola and there's somebody's parents have got a pizzeria and you're off for dinner for a couple of people, and that's sort of the level of item. You come to the Cape Wine Auction and it's a little more glamorous. It's a week in a chateau in France. It's an island off the coast of Madagascar for 10 days. I got the sense very early on that you got the kind of buy-in that you really wanted people to give you, where they understood, if we're going to make this work, if we're going to turn this into something that can rival Napa as one of the great wine auctions of the world, we've got to have some lots here that are properly dazzling.
100%, and I think there, firstly, a great thanks must go to all the various donors, the wineries that are participating, the people that work incredibly hard to put these lots together. But as you say, it's not just buying a case of wine. For example, Airlink has sponsored tickets to fly up to Mpumalanga to go to Singita for 2 days for 4 people. Element House has given an incredible lot from them. Newmark Hotels have given a week in Mauritius, and it just goes on and on. Spear has been incredible with the lots that they have given over the years, and last year the Spear lot went for, I think, 1.5 million rand, but it included a private jet experience flying for a week for I think it was 8 guests in Mozambique on a private island. So truly something magnificent. And for people to experience. And it's probably worth mentioning also this year, our major sponsor, which is a MasterCard. So thanks to MasterCard, a lot of our administration also is covered. But what MasterCard has done is they've created, obviously they're a sponsor of the Rugby World Cup. As the saying goes, you can buy a flight with your MasterCard. You can buy accommodation with a MasterCard, but can you get access to the changing rooms on the final game at the World Cup? I mean, that's priceless, right? And MasterCard has arranged for 2 people to be able to go to the final of the World Cup and have access to the teams and their locker rooms, etc., etc. I mean, what an amazing experience.
I've got goosebumps just listening to that one, and it's going to be multiplied many times over once we get that up into the room. I want to look at some of those in a little more detail. Before I do, the reason that all of this is being done is the Cape Wine Auction Trust. You mentioned the structure in terms of all of the money going directly to these platforms. Tell me a bit about some of these causes and about how this is really money from the winelands going back into the winelands.
100%. So, I mean, I should add, it's not only money from the winelands, because we have incredible guests attending from all over the country and also from overseas, who has generously bidded on lots, and that's what really makes a difference here. The money goes to a variety of schemes, from a Lunchbox Foundation, as we know that it's impossible to learn when you're hungry. But not only is it impossible to learn when you're hungry, brain development is critical in the early stages of life. And so malnourishment is a huge problem in our youth, and that needs to be addressed. So we support Lunchbox Foundation. They have fed millions of meals over the last 10 years. And not only that, but actually they were very, very active during COVID, when a lot of people actually lost jobs, in helping ensuring that school children still received meals 3 times a day. And then it's Nicola Harris's Click Foundation. Not only have the Harrises been amazing in giving lots, in buying lots, but also some of the charity work that they're doing in schools, arranging. So it's from that to actual schools being supported, to Pebbles, etc., etc. So the various beneficiaries of the trust are amazing, and the work that they do is absolutely incredible. We are very, very fortunate with the likes of Andy, who plays an incredible role in making sure that we support the right initiatives, and that every single money is well used, and it creates almost a multiplier effect.
And that's one that you've seen particularly closely, because I know you guys are not just, we arrive at the dinner once a year and smile at the auction and enjoy it. I know you keep a very close eye on how the money is used, how these different projects work. And you do something with Andy. You get together, you spend a lot of time getting feedback, getting reports back, seeing not just how your money is being used, but also getting a sense of where you can do more, how you can do more, and what's really needed in the winelands to try and make the most of the money that you're able to send back into the community.
100%. And I think what we should add on that, Dan, is that what we try and do is not to recreate the wheel. So when someone comes back to us, a beneficiary, and says, you know what, we really want to open up a feeding scheme within our school, what we do actually end up then doing is say, we already working with Lunchbox Foundation. how about we'll get them? They're really very good. They're really efficient, and we'll get them to help to create meals within your school. We have emerging leaders that helps train teachers. We have community keepers that does an absolutely incredible job. The Pinotage Foundation. So instead of just recreating different charities, what we try and do is create synergy between existing charities to maximize the impact of good that we are trying to achieve.
And you are to be applauded for it. You're going to do so again on Saturday. Let's answer a quick question that I raised at the very start of the show when the poster came up for the event, directing people off to TicketWeb if they wanted to be part of it. Are there still tickets available? And how many people can we expect if it's a full house this weekend?
I think there's one or two more tickets available, not a lot. We're in a venue that can only take 200 people, so it's close to capacity. But you know what? If someone wants to come, I'm happy to give up my seat and they can sit down and I'll stand in the background to ensure that we just maximize the return for the children, right?
Which will make sure I can see you more clearly when you're bidding on all sorts of lots. Which leads to the most interesting question, which I will ask you. I would have asked the other trustees, but they're obviously all terribly busy this evening. And that is, what's top of the list for you? You might not actually be bidding on them, because I think I'll go quite high. But in an ideal world, what are the bids you've seen that you'd really love to go home with?
Well, I wouldn't mind going for the MasterCard bid of the final World Cup game, and hopefully the Springboks are playing in that final. Even better if we played France in that final. But I suspect that's going to go for a crazy amount of money. But you never know. Maybe I'm lucky. The Mauritius lot looks absolutely superb. Which Newmark hotels have given. My fellow trustee has even given some tickets, and there's accommodation and wine from Nederburg for the Formula E, which is taking place not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. So it's hospitality seats and in the actual Formula E, which obviously I'm sure you're well aware of, taking place in Cape Town, and those are no longer available. So I guess if you want Formula E tickets, you should come to the Cape Wine auction and bid on that lot, for example. So that could be a lot of fun. But yeah, and in total, we have we have 22 lots, but some of those lots are just gift of the giving, which makes you feel good. Where you have the opportunity of, when some of these lots just go for too much money, that you can actually, if you feel like just giving 5,000 Rand or 10,000 Rand by feeding some children or supporting aftercare or reading, you can just do that, which is absolutely amazing. So there is the opportunity for every single person who is actually attending to make a difference in a very, very small way. You don't have to go for the very big lots as well.
And that's a piece I'm always, maybe it's just me being a little cynical, but I'm always so pleasantly surprised by how enthusiastically that gift of the giving lot is embraced, because we're not giving you a holiday Mauritius, we're not giving you tickets to the rugby, we're not sending you a Formula E, we're just taking your money and we're sending it to a really, really good destination. And that appears to be enough for so many people to say, yep, you know what, I like what you guys are doing, I want to help, here is X amount of money, and I just want to see it go to a good home.
Yeah, it's incredible, Dan. I mean, I would say in the last 3 auctions, the gift of the giving lots made up almost 30% of the auction proceeds. So if we think that, and as you say, it's people get nothing, but other than the opportunity to make a difference, I mean, that's, I mean, if to grab it from MasterCard again, that's almost priceless again, right? If you have the ability and you have this opportunity to make a difference with people that really need it, it's an incredible feeling.
There's also some time in the bush. There's a trip up to Cheetah Plains, which is just staggering to get up there. I've been lucky enough to spend some time there. It is ultra modern. The little dam in front of the main homestead with the resident crash herd group of hippo is always something to behold. But there's also another safari trip. You mentioned Airlink. It's also one that involves Paul Clüver, because together with Wendy, a couple of cases of 7 flags. I'd bid on that just on its own, but also a really nice safari experience.
Yes, we've been. We have to thank Sangeeta for obviously their generosity over there, and they've given 2 nights for 4 people, and your choice of 2 of their lodges, which would be absolutely amazing. And Sangeeta it's been rated several times as even the best small medium hotel in Africa and in the world. So definitely worth going to for that. And then we even have, Iain, who was the first South African to win a Michelin star, who will be doing a lot with La Motte. And you've got an opportunity to go and experience his food with 16 people. I mean, how amazing is that, right?
It's an incredible offer there. That's the new little spot at La Motte. I think you get Hein Kuchlenberg waitering for you for the evening, which is particularly exciting in a rather figure-hugging outfit, although I think most of them are. So that's a great one to look out for. This whole selection is coming together, and it's a wonderful one. I do have 1 or 2 last auction questions for you, but I must, as we've got a leading member of the wine community on the line at this particular time of year, steer away ever so briefly and just ask you quickly about harvest. How is it looking at Paul Clüver? How's it looking in Elgin? How upbeat are we feeling for 2023?
So we started today, if you would believe me. So as you know, Elgin is our coolest wine growing region in the country, and we harvested our first Pinot Noir today, which is the first grapes that's come in. So it's early to tell. I need to ask the winemaker how he feels about the grapes, but we'll probably have a better idea in the next couple of days. The harvest in general is earlier than usual, but it seems like the quality is fantastic, and we're quite excited about that. And that's being honest, Dan, because I know that most winemakers like to say, the current vintage is our best vintage ever, right?
It is pretty standard. I'm waiting for the winemaker who says, you know what, Dan, this year's vintage is rubbish. Buy none of it. Don't drink it. Stick to beer for the next year. Of course, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because it's never going to be that, but some will be worse than others. What about the broader context of Elgin? Because if I look at a number of the conversations I've been having a long chat to the team from Boschendal, for instance, over the weekend, where so much of the wine that they're producing is from Elgin and from a whole pile of varietals, producing some Elgin Merlot, for example, along with the slightly more predictable varietals. The Chardonnay colloquium not that long ago, dialing down into Elgin with great excitement. An area that perhaps wasn't as much on the main wine map a few years ago as some others, really does, I get the sense, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's gained so much traction, and people are seeing Elgin as once a fruit area, now very much a place that's home to some extremely exciting wine.
No, there's no doubt. I think the amazing thing is that there are more and more established wine growers in the Elgin Valley, which is fantastic. And there's nothing like competition that drives people to become better. So that's a fantastic thing. The Chardonnays from the Elgin Valley has done incredibly well. If you consider Decanter World Wine Awards last year, there were 7 gold medals from South Africa, and I think 5 of them came from Elgin. International Wine Challenge, Elgin took more than 50% of the Chardonnay awards there. And that, if you consider, Elgin only makes up 2% of Chardonnay plantings in South Africa. So it's a tiny area, but really punching above its weight when it comes to quality, which is absolutely amazing. Then the Pinot Noirs obviously is doing incredibly well, and just going from strength to strength. And once again, as those vines are becoming older, we're just seeing the quality improving year after year.
we're seeing varietals that maybe haven't always had a name in Elgin coming to the fore. I mentioned some Merlot a moment ago. There's a lot of Syrah popping up in the area, wines that are embracing that slightly cooler climate and loving the more elegant, more red fruit driven feel, especially on those red wines that is getting a lot of attention. Is this perhaps raising a question for you, for Andries, the Paul Clüver team, that maybe it's time to go a little further and branch out ever so slightly?
So we've been there. We used to grow Cab and Merlot and Cab Franc and Shiraz and Petit Verdot, and we've done various white wine varietals. And for us, we originally actually wanted to make a Bordeaux blend as our quintessential wine from Paul Clüver Wines, and it actually required Paul Pontellier from Chateau Margaux, now 18 years ago, who came to the estate and tasted all our wines, and the idea was that he would help us put together the perfect Bordeaux blend. And after tasting all the Bordeaux varietals, turning around to us and say, why do you want to make a Bordeaux blend if the best red wine in your cellar is Pinot Noir? And for us, the true trick then was to focus and not get distracted. And I guess for me, almost the best analogy is that if you go to a restaurant and the restaurant does everything, you kind of feel that they're not good at anything. So if you go to a restaurant that does pizza and sushi and steak and pastas and Indian and Thai, it's just all over the place. Whereas these days, I think more and more what people want is focus and expertise, and that's what we chose to do at Paul Clüver Wines.
And are doing rather successfully, to the extent that I'm being lured down. Look out next month when I'm in the Cape for the Cape Wine Auction for some time at Paul Clüver. We're going to go and catch up with Paul and Andries and the team and do some in-depth research on the wines of Paul Clüver and talk a little bit more about wines like the Seven Flags, 2 cases of which, together with Wendy Appelbaum's de Morgenzon, the Maestro, will be part of that extraordinary package to take you up into the bush and out into the wild. It's also an event, Paul, that you've kind of had to rejig a little as we get back to the auction, in that with our time of lockdown and of enforced social distancing, understandably, we missed a little stretch of this. And there was people wondering, will we see it again? Will it come back? Will it reach the heights of before? It is a little smaller than it was before, but it certainly seems like the energy is back, the intent is back, and the desire to make sure that this keeps having a really big impact on communities in the winelands is very much there and in no way diminished.
No, 100%. And look, we were back last year, and we raised 12 million rand, which was phenomenal, considering I think the tough economic times that South Africans and businesses have gone through during COVID. And despite that, the generosity of people has been absolutely incredible. So what has been achieved last year, and we're hoping to achieve that again this year, is exactly that. And I think, Dan, the important thing is this is not about any single trustee or the ego of anyone. This is 100% of achieving or raising the money to be able to make the difference with the beneficiary organizations that we support. If we don't do it, though, a lot of those organizations will not have an alternative to raise the type of capital and to have the impact that they actually need. And the need is immense. And I think I always love the quote of Nelson Mandela that says, education is the most powerful weapon to change the world, right? And the best time to educate people is from a very young age. So hence the Cape Wine Auction's focus is firstly and foremostly on the younger kids, from even kindergarten stage, so early childhood development, and then up into primary school level. We do support, obviously, high school and tertiary institutions, but that's not our focus. Our focus is where we can have the absolute maximum impact.
Which you do, and you do so by a great collective effort, which leads rather nicely to some good news. We have finally got our other Cape Wine Auction trustee starlet online, and so we can jump over and say a very good evening to Wendy Appelbaum, who joins us probably from a jacuzzi with a bottle of wine in hand, if past shows are anything to go by, and I'm sure with a big smile on face, because Wendy, 10 years, we asked Paul this at the start, the celebration of a decade. How much does it mean to you that this crazy idea of 10 and more years ago is now celebrating not just this mark, but also able to look back on having made such a phenomenal difference in a pretty short space of time?
I think it's been incredible. I mean, I don't think that we can take all the credit. Obviously, we have been incredibly well supported by our people who come to our auctions and the people who give the auction lots and whatever. So this has been a community effort. And I think it's been extraordinary. And when I look back and think about the difference that we've made in these incredible children's lives, it's quite remarkable. So, I mean, very stimulating, very wonderful, and leaves you feeling really good. And so a big shout out and a big thank you to all those people who have supported the Cape Wine Auction in the past. Thank you very much.
There have been so many moments that I remember from my time with the auction. It hasn't been nearly as long as the two of you, but I remember a single bottle of wine going for north of R1,000,000. I remember Rose Jordan removing Rake Neertling's shirt on stage with her teeth.
Trying.
I think there was quite a queue to perform that particular task. There were also the moments where the gift of giving suddenly saw dozens of people simply put a hand up and say, yeah, I want to help and I really don't want anything in return. What have been the moments for you, Wendy, over the years that have really made you laugh, made you smile, made you feel really proud and possibly even quietly shed a tear?
I mean, I think, listen, we've had a lot of fun. I can't say I've ever shed a tear accepting money and taking bids and getting excited about the money that came in. I think I very often shed a tear about the very poor circumstances that so many of our children come from. And really to see them come out of some of the schools that we've sent them to succeed in their sports efforts, etc., has been extraordinary. And for that, you can shed tears. There's no doubt in my mind. Tears of absolute joy and excitement, really, than anything else. And I think I think we've over-delivered on what we thought we could have done in the space of time that we've done it. And as I say, I think that we've over-delivered in that we have had an even bigger impact than we ever started out thinking that we were going to have. And so it's contagious, you know. It really is contagious. The world is so full of, negative stuff. But when you see the difference that we made in these children's lives, it's seriously positive.
I suspect there'll be a few more tears this weekend. Most of them, tears of joy on Saturday, some tears on Sunday morning when people wake up and realize what they'd spent the night before and hadn't quite thought it all through. But it's all for a particularly good cause. And I suspect there'll be a lot more money flowing, Wendy, because there are some terrific lots. Paul has run through some of his favorites, including the partnership that he has with you, the Maestro and the Seven Flags, cases thereof as part of a great safari trip that is on the cards. From the rest of the auction items, what's really getting Wendy Appelbaum excited?
Well, I think ours is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful lot, and I hope that it responds. You know what? I mean, I don't think one can really single out lots, because I think there's something for everybody, and I think that's the important thing. There's some very expensive lots, and there are some not so expensive lots, but at the end of the day, it's a cumulative effect of all those lots that we sell in order to positively impact the lives of the children. So at the end of the day, each of them has been given with great thought and effort and whatever, and everybody is responsible. I mean, there are somebody like from Singita he's such a regular giver, and he's so kind. Whatever you ask him, he always gives you. Those are moments where you kind of get your love of humanity back, honestly, because it really is. I think it's just, cumulative effort, and obviously we will do the best that we can with what we have, and try and impact positively as many lives as possible. So they are all good lots. We wouldn't put them on if they weren't, I promise. It's just like what people love. If people choose to go racing cars, we have that. If they choose to go to the bush, we have that. Everybody's got something. And I think it's the common good that we coalesce around that is the part that really makes me happy.
As it should. It is a terrific selection. If you want to see them in a little more detail, you can head over to the Cape Wine Auction website. Wendy, a little earlier, Paul made mention of the fact that this is not about the trustees individually. It's not about the egos. But I will make an exception to that because he's not here to defend himself or plead that he has nothing really to do with it, because of course he has a massive role. We say goodbye at the end of this auction in his role as chair to a bloke by the name of Raymond, who's had a pretty special impact, not just on this auction.
No, I think you've got it all wrong. Raymond is stepping down. I handed the banner to Raymond, and he's carried it for 2 years, and Paul is now stepping in.
But give the impact that Raymond has had as he wraps up. He's an incredible person. He's got his own wine brand, but he's also jumped into this both feet first and really given it such an injection of life.
He is a life enhancer, I have to say. He really is a life enhancer, and fits us in neatly into a very busy schedule. But I think that we all do give time and we do give energy. And I think that that's what makes it so special. But there are also other people who do wonderful, wonderful jobs. And he puts together the whole kind of the interaction between all of our beneficiaries, where they learn so much from each other. So I think that everybody's had a role to play. Daria Robertson honestly puts it together she needs very little of help from us. She just does it beautifully. And it's a really, really special evening. So if anybody is thinking of joining, it is truly one of the highlights of the year. I don't think anybody's ever gone home sober, and I've definitely never gone home unhappy. One or two may have woken up in the morning and said, what the hell have I done? But I think after years and after time, they know that they've done something wonderful for the kids of the winelands who richly deserve it.
And if you want further evidence of that, I think I've got a photo. I might have to dig it up for Saturday. The only time I've seen Wendy almost as happy as she is at the auction was when she was pouring wine on a British Airways flight last year to every single person on the plane, because the Morgenzon had just been listed and she wanted to make sure nobody missed out. Nobody will miss out this Saturday if they are there on a fine night and a great celebration of philanthropy, good food and good wine. Paul, as the incoming chairman, is this just a purely exciting, I can't wait to get stuck in, or is there a little bit of trepidation at the scale of this, of stepping into the shoes of Raymond, of carrying on the mantle of what's now become a philanthropic institution?
Definitely trepidation, Dan. I mean, if I'm following in the footsteps of giants, as Wendy, it's Raymond, then Wendy, Michael Jordan. So the trust has been fortunate enough to have incredible people lead it. And I hope that I will be able to fulfill the duties in the same manner that the previous chairs have been able to do.
I have no doubt. I want to wrap up with one penultimate question for you both, and I'll start with you, Paul. You're 10 years in. I think you've created so much more than you believed you would have, and you probably had your sights set on. What if I come back to you in 10 years' time? Where is the Cape Auction Trust then? What is the measure of success a further decade on?
It's a good question. I mean, the ultimate long-term goal, even beyond 10 years, is that the need for this type of organization should no longer be there. That we actually succeed in solving the challenges in education within South Africa. I fear that will not be alleviated in 10 years, but hopefully we will be able to make a huge difference in the way that we have been able to do in the last 10 years.
And for you, Wendy, it's surpassed the expectations of so many. You've now got to the 10-year mark, and you've set a really high bar for yourselves. A further 10 years, what more is there to do?
10 years, when I think we see these kids who started right down in the lower grades, coming out of universities as truly successful entrepreneurs, business people, professionals, and looking back about the history of how it all began, I think we have got a lot to look forward to in terms of successes. And I have no doubt that we will be incredibly proud of some of the kids that we have brought into this world. And I'd love to see one of them as the president of South Africa. God knows me so.
It's not beyond the realm of possibility. I think we'll definitely have one of them as a trustee before too long, and bring together this community even closer. The final question for both of you, and it's one of the main reasons we enjoy beyond the philanthropy of it all and the excitement. It's a great night of food. It's a great night of wine. It is a great night of dancing. For the people who do come along and they may be thinking, oh, I believe there are 2 or 3 tickets still available, I would love to get one. The great Gareth Robertson in his role as chief sommelier, bringing together the other element of giving, which is so many of the wine estates donating wine for the evening. And they're certainly not donating the entry-level stuff, Wendy.
No, we always send our best. We put our best foot forward, and we hope to be an example to the kids of doing that themselves, because that's where they will rise to the top. The wines are exceptional and are poured at the right temperatures by the right people. There are winemakers, there are all sorts of people, even during harvest, that will serve you some of the best South Africa has to offer. That alone is worth an absolute fortune, and you will have the most fabulous evening.
Indeed it is. Final word from you, Paul. People who may be considering this, or people who are just watching on from afar thinking, this looks pretty special. Incoming chair, what's your message from this space to people about how important it is, and how lots of people coming together can really make an incredible difference?
Yeah, so if you can't make it in person, you can still participate in the auction. There's an online version. There's you also have the opportunity to donate the gift of the giving lot. So you can make a difference even by not being present, and that would be my one takeout for those who are listening. The second is that, as Wendy has mentioned, the wineries have given. All the donors of the lots needs to be applauded and thanked, and they're really getting nothing in return. I have to say, it's not like there's a reserve price that needs to be met because we're paying for any of the lots. The lots are 100% given for free, and we have to thank everyone who's done that. And then of course for those people who will be bidding and making a difference, thank you so much for them too.
Guys, it is so much fun. I will be down at Hazendal on stage with Iain Banner as we get the lots going and celebrate another edition of the Cape Wine Auction. I promise to be taking photos once Paul and Wendy hit the dance floor in the small hours of the morning, which is always very entertaining. I see Daryl Robertson is watching. The lots are great.
I want my last word, and that is to say thank you to you, Dan. I thought you would ask me as well. A very, very special thank you to you for the time and energy that you put into this auction and the memory that you have of who's given before and the banter. I mean, he does rip the ring out of you, I can assure you. But it's all in good fun and in good humor and jest. And you are an absolute asset to the wine auction. Thank you for what you give to us.
Oh, it is a great, great pleasure, and purely the opportunity, Wendy, to have fun at your expense is why I shall be on that plane coming down on Saturday, and I love it, and it allows me to play a small part in a truly wonderful event. Your words have been taken heed of, Paul. I see Grant Sauls is watching on YouTube, says, looking forward to some bidding, Dan. Grant is a great wine collector and bids on a lot of auctions. Grant, you are in for a treat as well. Wendy, I know you've got a Pilates class to get to as you prepare for the dancing on Saturday. And Paul, there's doubtless some harvest tasting to be done. Guys, last one, just to thank you both, not just joining on the show, but for being part of this terrific organization that has given us the Cape Wine Auction and, more importantly, has given so much hope to so many people in the winelands. I will see you both on Saturday. It's going to be a great night out, and I cannot wait. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Bye, darling. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you so much.
So there we go. Paul Clüver, along with Wendy Appelbaum from Paul Clüver Wines and De Morgenzon, respectively. But in the context of today's show, the incoming chair and the former chair, both trustees of the Cape Wine Auction Trust, the platform that through this magnificent auction sends so much money to so many good causes and makes a fundamental difference in so many young lives. We go back to some slightly more orthodox wine talk. On Thursday, we're going to be discussing Colombar, the rise of a grape that was once destined to be nothing more than Brandewijn. Some pretty good brandy, certainly, but it's now finding a home in its own right in the wine world, and I think none too soon. So look out for, amongst others, Saki Mouton. He will be on the show with us. John Loebscher from Silverthorne will be on the show as well, amongst a group of guests. Iain O'Dear will be joining me as well, and Lucas van Lochenberg, all celebrating the wonders of Colombar. That's coming up on Thursday, after which I'll be doing some light stretching and preparing to head down to the Cape for the latest edition of the Cape Wine Auction, presented in partnership with MasterCard. Have a great evening. Enjoy great South African wine. I'll see you Thursday. Goodbye.